Hi, my name's Tony Scelzo, and welcome to The Buzz, Indiana's underground business voice. I've got Jason Lee in the studio today with JLB Media Services. Did I get it right?
Just JL.
Just JL? Oh, okay. Well, JL Media Services. You know, I think I turned your company into Mickey Brooks' company there for a second.
Yeah.
Now, what is a media services company? What do you do?
Well, I'm a freelance media buyer. What I do is advertisers that want to be on the TV or radio, I help them plan effectively for that to maximize their return on advertising investment.
So, let's break it down even for Homer Simpson. What does a media buyer do? I mean, you're going out there and actually buying these programs for people? How does that work?
Well, what I'll do is I'll assess based on their marketing problem and objectives the media that we'll approach and look into, whether that's radio or TV, and see what makes sense based on the marketing objective.
Okay.
And then once we find out where we want to be, I'll actually start approaching stations. I'll vet the entire market, find out what the market price is, make sure they don't pay more than the market price, get as much added value as possible.
So someone will come to you, like, let's say they're doing a direct response campaign. Right?
Yeah, that's what I do mostly is direct response to campaigns.
So someone got a new exercise video that they're trying to sell, right? And they'll come to you and they say, well, here's what we think our demographic is. We've got this much as a budget, and it's got to be pretty good if they're considering using somebody like you, right?
Sure.
And then you justify the way you make money by not only planning but negotiating those buys.
Yeah, I have access to a lot of really high-end qualitative and quantitative data that'll help me analyze their target market and help them understand how their target audience consumes broadcast media and how to reach them effectively.
So some of what you're doing, I mean, this is a lot of strategy.
It is. Yeah.
And usually the clients that are coming to you are spending a pretty good amount of money, aren't they?
I have sort of a 5 to 50 rule. Typically, a client will have a monthly broadcast budget of between $5,000 and $50,000 a month.
Okay.
So at 10% sales, revenue would be $600,000 to $6 to $10 million a year.
Sure. And one of the things that I think is, I confess that in a separate life I used to work for a media buyer. But it's amazing how integrated some businesses are into spending their radio and TV dollar as part of their business model. And so you actually are involved in the very strategy they use to grow their business. Is that true?
Yeah, it is. I handle probably the biggest line item on their marketing budget, which is their advertising spend. And someone would use me versus doing it themselves because maybe they don't have time anymore. Sure. They don't have any skill. A lot of the people that I compete against with what I do are people placing media directly, and two, big agencies.
Well, that's the other thing I want to talk about. A lot of people don't understand that they'll go to an agency and they'll have them place their media, but a lot of agencies really don't put somebody that deserves that kind of responsibility in that role. Is that true?
Yeah. My whole shtick is an ally in broadcast advertising, someone that is skilled at placing their media, but also take it as personally as they do. Because I've chosen as a strategy to serve a small number of dedicated clients, I can maximize results through personal attention.
It's just a really cool niche that you developed. That the fact that that there's a lot of people out there wasting their money with agencies, or wasting their money by negotiating themselves.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of times that people don't know how much money they can save just by waiting till right before the deadline to negotiate a deal.
There's all kinds of industry experience that's required to place as effectively as I do, and I think the biggest benefit beyond my skills to do it is there's very low risk. I actually only charge based on a percentage of their budget monthly, but my services are afforded by an equivalent discount from the stations.
Sure.
There's no net cost for my services.
Yeah, that was one of the things I want to get to. You're almost free because you negotiate your value and then some with whoever you bring on.
That's right.
So he's really easy to refer. Jason, what now? You've kind of really jumped into Rainmakers full bore.
Yeah.
And I'm laughing because you were in Blooming today, and so was I. And I think you're from Columbus.
From Columbus, yeah.
And I actually thought he was an Indianapolis member because you were at so many Indianapolis events. So you are really trying to build a channel that is out there continuously marketing your services. Now, what does that channel look like?
That channel are other marketing and advertising creative people that might have clients that they're doing some broadcast. Maybe they're handling their print work or something. Marketing professionals, and especially in Rainmakers, tend to be a lot of specialists, you know, and so we tend to refer business back and forth. So just marketing people and advertising creative people in general. Symbiotic relationships, though, are production companies, people that produce television and radio commercials but don't do media buying.
And one of the things that I think is interesting is you've really understand that that not only is your channel, they're in a position to effectively refer you business. And quite honestly, you probably can too as the needs come up, because they're going to look to you for that strategic advice.
I hope I can.
Yeah. And then you also really have gone further and identified the win-win relationships. You said symbiotic, but you know, I'm using simpler language because I'm Italian. But the relationships where you're able to feed them business and they're able to feed you business, and that's those production companies.
Production companies, yes.
So really,
audio, video.
If we're talking to our 1,500 members, there's two types of relationships you're looking for. Actually, there's three types of relationships. One is other marketing people, because you're trying to build that channel.
Yep.
You want them to know of you. By the way, only media buyer out of 1,400 members now. You want them to know of you, and you want to know of them. So you can be aware of the other specialists you have access to. Right. And then production companies are really good for you, and we talked about maybe introducing you to Pathway Productions. Hopefully they'll see this and pick up the phone.
That'd be great.
And then beyond that, businesses that have a strategic play in media for growing their business model. And I think that's, you know, and what I would mean by that is, like, you know, there are some businesses that are ideally suited to market through advertising on TV and radio.
Yeah, some businesses and some industries just sort of naturally are inclined. Typically, they have a product or service that is broadcast worthy, meaning that most people need it or buy it. This includes automotive dealers, education like tech schools, advertising attorneys like personal injury and Social Security disability, bankruptcy. Another good one is, you know, financial services and banks and things like that.
Well, and I think the other thing that's indicative of those businesses is they have a high margin in the terms of dollars to afford that inquiry and therefore the close of that business, right?
Correct.
I mean, if someone's going to if someone sells a car through advertising at $10,000, they only have to sell so many cars to justify your existence in there. And so one of the things I was thinking was healthcare too, like the home healthcare plays, and the guys that are trying to, the companies trying to provide that kind of services.
Healthcare tends to be branding. You know, tech schools and community colleges tend to be branding. In the past, I've done primarily direct response. I like to try to make the phone ring for people and really generate, you know, revenue. And that's what makes it the most exciting.
Okay. Now, one of the things that I want to make sure people understand, that let's say you get in the game where someone has actually got another media buyer. How would we differentiate you between some of your competition?
Well, if they have another freelance media buyer, I would be very surprised. Me being an independent media buyer is very rare. Typically, a media, if you like you said before, typically they're placing it themselves or they're using an agency. You know, people usually won't talk about they're having a hard time with their media buyer. You'll just know whether or not they're advertising on TV, or they might talk about their television or radio advertising, and that's when I would hope somebody that knew me would just pipe up and say, "Hey, who's helping you with that?" Yeah.
So if we've got a client, if we're speaking to the 1,500 members and how they can help you, one of the things that I think it's important to know is if your clients are spending a lot of money on TV and radio, and you see it through repetition and frequency, that just in your market that they may be worth talking to you, because you may be A, able to help them save some money, and B, make them their advertising dollars go a lot further for what they're trying to get in results.
I would say that's fair, sure. I mean, the people that are my targets are the people that you'd see already advertising on the TV and radio, you know. So if anybody out there knows someone that is on TV or radio, maybe call them up and see what they're, who they're using to help them place that media.
Sure. JL Media Services, what's your website?
Broadcastmybusiness.com.
Broadcastmybusiness.com. Get to see Jason Lee. All you have to do is really show up at a Rainmakers event, and he'll probably be there. He's kind of the new Mickey Brooks.
Sure.
Thanks very much. You've been Buzz.
Thanks, Tony.
Appreciate it.